What's up, everybody? Bandit Chad here for some really exciting news, and we've kind of been holding back a little bit to discuss the new Jeep Gladiator because we wanted to really wait until all the information got out there in regards to pricing and everything else before we jump to any conclusions. There have been a lot of naysayers before even the truck was seen as a prototype, saying all kinds of things like it'll never be a true truck if it's a Jeep, it'll never be a true Jeep if it's a truck, it'll always be way too expensive if it's made by Fiat, and it'll be unreliable. Those are the things that we've been hearing, but honestly it does look to be a pretty well thought out system. So basically what you're seeing, I'm sure you've already seen it, but the Jeep Gladiator does basically have all of the front half of the suspension components from the new JL Wrangler. All of the rear part of the frame and suspension components are very similar to what is found on the new Ram 1500. So it's not exactly like the Jeep suspension, and basically the reason for that is sharing a lot of those components with the Ram 1500 really allows it to be able to haul and tow more and really live up to those truck functions instead of just being a Jeep and not having any of the payload or towing. So there are pros and cons to all of this part sharing. The good part about it is it ends up with best-in-class towing at 7,650 pounds and best-in-class payload at 1,600 pounds, which is all really, really good. Some of the diesels can tow a little bit more, but for a gas mid-size truck, those numbers are class-leading. Now, the issue is it works out to be about 10 inches longer in wheelbase than a comparable Tacoma or Colorado. So that'd be a four-door short bed truck, and that is not really good for off-roading, to say the least. The JLs in the unlimited, the four doors, have gotten to be a lot longer than the two-door brethren, which is good. You know, it certainly helps get a lot of them out on the road. Certainly helps Fiat Chrysler sell a lot more of those vehicles. The issue is there is some pros to getting a little bit longer wheelbase. It can be more stable on hill climbs, but the longer the wheelbase, obviously the easier it is going to be to get hung up there on that undercarriage. Now, the undercarriage is pretty well protected. It is a true ladder frame design like any other truck, and like the Jeeps still are a body on frame design, which is really great, and it should also be really good in the aftermarket should you want to lift it or whatever else. Now, as a result of all this part sharing as well, that's how they were able to achieve the pricing. So the pricing, the absolute base model for a Sport, which is crank windows, no power locks, and the soft top with a manual transmission, works out to be right around $35,000. And if you were to go into the Rubicon trim, obviously that's where things start to get expensive. All Fiat Chrysler vehicles seem to really get expensive the more packages you add on, and you can get north of $60,000 with being a Rubicon. I'm sure they'll have Rubicon Hard Rock editions and all kinds of special editions later on. That's really where the money goes, and like I said, you can probably get it almost to $70,000 if you were to add up with all those packages.
So when it comes to this new Jeep Gladiator, some people might be asking themselves, you know, are they going to want to fork over the cash for that expensive upgrade? We had already discussed it a little bit earlier, even before this video, that this Gladiator is going to be a tad bit more expensive than an equivalently packaged Jeep Wrangler because of that truck bed, because it is a longer frame, and it does have components from the Ram 1500 and everything else that it does include.
And as a result of that, it is also a little bit more expensive than comparably spec'd out trucks in the rest of the mid-size segment, like the Colorado, like the Tacoma, and like the long in the tooth Frontier. And the new-to-the-market Ranger. It does end up being a good bit more expensive than all those trucks, but those trucks are not convertible, and to be completely honest, they're not going to be nearly as good off-road. It does have Jeep DNA baked into it. It should be a great performer, and really the only downside in terms of performance is that overall stretched wheelbase. You know, it is being 10 inches longer, going to be a little bit harder to negotiate on tight trails like we have here for the Southeast four-wheeling that we do. It is going to be a little bit more of a handful, but overall there's not a whole lot of cons to this vehicle. You know, I'm sure there was a lot of Jeep owners, myself included, coming off of a Jeep JK. I really needed a truck bed. I couldn't do everything I wanted to do with just my Jeep anymore, and that's how I ended up in a Tacoma. Now, as a result of that, I have been very happy with my truck. but there are still some times where it would have been great to take the top off and go for a nice long cruise, get the wind in the hair experience and everything like
absolutely. That open air experience that does come with owning a Jeep that you can take the doors and top off.
Right, and as a result of this, all of this coming together, I think it's going to sell really, really well. You know, anything, it seems like that Fiat Chrysler puts a Jeep badge on seems to sell well. You can see that with the Renegade and, you know, the Grand Cherokee. All of those are great vehicles, but having the Jeep name on top of all that even helps them sell even more. Whether these people go off-road with this vehicle or not, I think that remains to be seen. It seems like a lot of Jeeps, I'm not trying to make any stereotypes here, but a lot of Jeeps you do just see around town. You don't necessarily see them all up in the mountains. I think that's great if that's the way people want to spend their money, but you know, there's certainly more comfortable vehicles if that's all you want. With this thing being a solid front axle and sharing a lot of components with the Jeep, it's going to drive like a Jeep. It's not going to drive like the Ram 1500. It's not going to drive like any of the rest of the mid-size trucks in the segment. It's not going to be car-like by any means. It's going to be a more rough and rugged version, and it's going to be, you know, a true Jeep. I think the easiest thing to compare all of this to is really like the Ram Power Wagon. I mean, sure, it's not a 3/4 ton truck, but with the solid front and rear axles, with the lockers that can be found there on the Jeep Rubicon, I think that's really the more comparable vehicle to all of this. And again, I think that's how you come up with some of this pricing. You know, no other SUV in the class or that's similar can do any of this. No other truck in the class can do any of this. So you kind of end up in this no man's land, and Jeep is square in it, and I think they'll sell a lot of them as a result.
More than likely, yes. Even though there is that pricing, like we said, there are definitely going to be some of those people that definitely, absolutely have to have one because they have either owned a Wrangler in the past, or at one point maybe they had the J10 or what was the other Jeep truck?
Comanche.
The Comanche. So like there are those times in the past where Jeep has had something with a truck bed, and
right.
People absolutely loved it, and they were popular. And now that they've brought it back in the form of the Gladiator, I think that does definitely resonate with the people who really enjoy that heritage that Jeep does have. And like you said, there's definitely Jeep DNA in this truck as well.
Right, and just out of curiosity, I did go ahead and price this truck. Now, for a price comparison, my truck being the Access Cab Tacoma with you know, basically every option that you could get on it, Toyota seems to work more in packages, where Fiat Chrysler lets you add items more a la carte, but there are a lot more packages that you can add. But to get all of the same kind of features like heated seats, the blind spot monitoring, all like that, in a 4-door Tacoma, I did go ahead and price that just so it'd be even more fair. It does work out to be around $36,000, $37,000 for a Tacoma. Now this with the Gladiator works out to be about $43,000. So you're looking at you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 difference depending on exactly which options you pick and which ones you let go of. And that was just pricing a Sport S of the Gladiator versus the TRD Off-Road in the Tacoma. So kind of two similar things, and you can actually get a limited slip differential in that Sport S, but it's not like we're comparing, excuse me, Rubicon with just the TRD Off-Road. It's clearly not the same class. But if you did want to go to, say, a TRD Pro versus the Rubicon, you're looking at upper $50,000 for the Rubicon, and you're looking at $45,000 for the Tacoma TRD Pro, and the same type of thing with the ZR2. The TRD Pro and the ZR2 are very similarly priced. So regardless where you start, it does end up being a little bit more expensive. But again, with the utility that you can get out of this, I think it's great. The only thing that I can see that is a true complaint of this vehicle is the fact that it is only available in one configuration. It is only available in that 5-foot bed and with the 4-door truck. Now, I'm not mad at Jeep for doing this. I completely understand the business case. Probably 90% of new trucks that are sold are 4-door and short bed, yeah. Especially when you want to take them off-road. It just seems like people want to take buddies with them and go out on the trail, and that is the selection that they make. Now, I've seen the renderings just like all of you have, and I think that the extended cab Jeeps look awesome. I really do. But I don't think Jeep's going to make one. I think they've done enough parts sharing, and you know, with the 4 doors, all of which being shared with the JL, I think that's how we even got this truck to begin with. Part sharing is really the name of the game here with this vehicle, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something you have to realize. So I think basically what it boils down to is Chad and I are both very happy that this vehicle is in existence. There's been rumors about it for a long time, and we're finally starting to see the vehicle. Now, I hope this was a pretty unbiased little Dirt on Trucks talk here. You know, we are Toyota owners, but, you know, I'm very excited about this thing. My family owns Jeeps. We've owned Jeeps for a long time. You're in the same boat, right?
Yep, we have also had a JK in the family. My dad and I bought a 1989 YJ. That was a project meant to be type of a weekend kind of thing, and it was a really fun project. So we both of our families have had a hand in Jeeps and enjoyed Jeeps for a period of time.
Right, and you know, it's not just the ownership experience, it's also just the Americana of a Jeep. You know, it does carry a lot of history with the name, and you know, it certainly goes back a long way. But we'd love to know what you all think. Are you happy with this new Gladiator? Is it exactly what you've been after, or would you have rather had an extended cab, a single cab, you know, any other configuration that you can imagine? Let us know in the comments below. We are really interested in hearing what you all have to say. But thank you all very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and liking the video. We do really appreciate all of the support. Again, thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.